Welcome to Light Over Heat with Professor David Yamani. As many of you know, I've been on a bit of a hiatus lately, but some recent high-profile shootings in America have brought me back, so let's talk about it. A week ago, I was having a nice dinner with my son when a notification came across on his phone about yet another shooting, in this case a cheerleader who was shot in a grocery store parking lot in Austin, Texas. And as he looked at the notification, I could see the frustration and fatigue come over his face, and I have to admit I share that frustration and fatigue, whether it's someone shooting into a 16-year-old's birthday party or someone going into their workplace in Louisville, someone shooting someone for coming up on their porch or driving in their driveway. All of these continual bombardment of stories just lends to a feeling that things are out of control and there's nothing much that we can do about it. Now, my response to these sorts of situations is often to try to find the nuance and the complexity and some perspective on the issues. So I spent a lot of time last week talking to people about how the events in Kansas City on the porch and in upstate New York in the driveway were qualitatively different than someone shooting someone in a parking lot in Austin, Texas, or someone shooting their neighbor for having a ball roll onto their yard in Charlotte. We need to understand there's a difference between someone going in and shooting up a 16-year-old's birthday party and someone committing an act of workplace violence, and so on and so on. So that's one aspect of what's happening, but on the other hand, these things shouldn't be happening as much as they are. And I think that it's incumbent upon us to try to understand the issue from both perspectives at the same time. And this is where we run into great difficulty, because we have on the one hand hyperbole coming from those who would want to regulate firearms more, and we also have a very defensive orientation among those who are protective of their gun rights, and that generates a lot of heat and, as my saying goes, not enough light. So I want to try always to turn the heat down on these issues. And this is what I've tried to do in talking to media, all the way from Chuck Todd from Meet the Press on his podcast to Trey Gowdy on his TV show on Fox News. And I feel fortunate to be able to speak to people who come from different perspectives and who come at the gun issue from different perspectives. Now, at the same time, I argue that these sorts of things don't happen that often if you consider that there are at least 77 million American gun owners, well over 100 million people who have access to guns in their homes, 400 million guns in America, 20 million concealed carry permit holders, lots of states in which people can carry without a permit. But to see things from the other side, at the same time, I want to say these events are statistically improbable. I had a conversation with my sister after the Uvalde shooting in which I was talking about the statistical unlikelihood of a mass shooting, particularly in the setting of a school. And her response really struck me, because she said it's not statistically improbable to the people it happens to the families and the relatives and the friends. And I think that's something that people need to really keep in mind. I lost my father this spring. He was 93 years old. He lived a great life. He had a great death. And yet it still hurt me profoundly. The sadness and the grief that I felt at the loss of someone that I had had for so long was extremely profound. So I can't even imagine the grief and the sadness that a parent or a friend or a relative would feel losing someone unnecessarily at a young age. And I wish that more people in the gun community would put that to the center and understand that some of the response that people have to what seems to be endemic problems with guns, like my son, who experiences this fatigue and frustration at all of these stories, understand where they're coming from and understand how you can speak to them about the meaningfulness of gun ownership, the responsibility of gun ownership, the distance between what happens with these negative outcomes and what gun owners aspire to, but also having some empathy with people who are experiencing profound sadness, grief, frustration, and so on. And I'd say, the other way around, for those of you who, are just fed up with guns, try to understand this broader perspective. Try to understand what it feels like to be a gun owner who has done nothing wrong, but is being blamed either directly or implicitly for the misuse of firearms by other people. So I don't know how long I'll be back. I'm back for now, trying to promote light over heat on the issue of guns. I appreciate you tagging along with me. If you're a new viewer, I appreciate you checking me out, and I'll have more to say about these issues in the coming weeks.